Members of the City Council, please attend the call meeting of the City Council to be held in the 6th floor conference room, 801 Crawford Street, 6 p.m., Monday, August 11, 2014, for the purpose of a public work session. In addition, you may consider a motion to go into closed meeting by order of the mayor. Mr. Cherry?
Here.
Mr. Edmond?
Here.
Mr. Meeks?
Here.
Mr. Moody?
Here.
Ms. Simmons?
Here.
Ms. Randall?
Here.
Mayor Wright? Mr. Rowe?
Good evening.
Good evening.
The first item of business, you need to have a closed session to discuss a legal matter. And I'm not going to be here because you need to hear between your counsel, your attorney, and yourself. So this is an attorney-client discussion. And so I'm going to make the assumption that you'll have the right motion and you'll go in and I'll be in my office. And once you come out, then we'll start the work session.
Okay.
I move to go into a closed meeting pursuant to the provisions of Virginia Code Section 2.2-3711 for the following purpose: consultation with legal counsel and briefing by staff pertaining to actual litigation where such consultation or briefing in open meeting would adversely affect the city's litigating posture as permitted under subsection A7.
Second.
Mr. Cherry?
Yes.
Mr. Edmonds?
Yes.
Mr. Meeks?
Yes.
Mr. Moody?
Yes.
Ms. Simmons?
Yes.
Ms. Randall?
Here.
We are in closed session. Thank you.
Yes, sir. We're
All
back
right.
in session. Let's go.
I'd like to introduce to you the new golf team at Bada Wee. It's a new day at Bada Wee. And Nita.
All right, thank you.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
I am very excited to update you on the golf program and to introduce you guys to our new pro. But first of all, just a little bit of history. This past spring, the city restructured the golf program. It was in April of this year. And at that time, we actually moved Arthur Williams over to the golf program as the manager of golf. So I'd like Arthur to stand up and you guys to be reintroduced to Arthur. Arthur's been with the city now for 20 years. He's had 24 years in Parks and Rec. He's had 12 years as a golf program instructor for USGA Golf. So we're really pleased to have Arthur with us. He's a Norfolk State grad.
All right.
So that was the first change. Okay. The second change in April were some fiscal changes that we made that would be effective July 1 that would structure the golf program so that that business model was exactly like the rest of the city's enterprise funds. And then the final change unexpected that we had was the retirement of Andy Giles. So now we moved to July 1, and in the middle of July, we hired our new Class A PGA professional, Adam Reeland. So I'd like to introduce Adam to you. Where's Adam? There you go. Adam. And
Come to the front.
yeah, come on up. So we're really excited to have Adam with us. And perfect music, right. Adam is a Class A PGA professional. He graduated from Campbell University with a bachelor's degree in PGA and PGM program management. So his whole undergraduate studies were in golf. He is the immediate past head golf professional from Smithfield Golf Club, not in Smithfield, Virginia, but in Smithfield down in South Carolina. In Piedmont, South Carolina. He has over 20 years of experience, and he actually established the Pickens and Oconee Junior Golf program. So we are very fortunate to have Adam with us. Right. Reporting to Adam are two assistant professionals that have been with the city for a while, and they are Ron McEwen and Matt Watson. All right, great. Yeah, three of you guys, hang tight. All right. Now, Ron has 17 years of experience with the city of Portsmouth. He started out at City Park. Now he is our assistant golf professional at Bada Wee, and he's has been the director of the Town Bank Portsmouth City Amateur Tournament for the past 12 years. Correct. We're happy to have Ron with us and to stay with us and stay on board. He's doing a great job. We have Matt, who is a graduate of Old Dominion with a bachelor's in sports management. He was a 2010 Virginia Amateur semifinalist, and he turned professional in 2011, and he's currently our assistant pro over at the Links. So we feel like, and Art, you can stand up too, we have a great foursome. If you look, there's a handout. You all should have this handout here. This ad was put in the paper on July 20th. It was Sunday's paper. It was a Sunday paper. And we talked about the open house that is scheduled for the 21st of August, 21st. And so we are confident I'm confident and excited about this team in terms of turning our program around at the golf, with the golf program, as well as turning it around fiscally. We've got a lot planned. So if you would look at this sheet, this is what is going to be handed out, and these are our new initiatives with the golf program that will be unveiled on the 21st at the open house. We have always in the past had memberships, but we're calling them annual golf passes, and that is increasing in sales now. At one time we only had one, now we have 3. And we're going to end up with a few more people. I was talking to some people over the weekend, and they're going to purchase golf passes on an annual basis for Badawi. There's going to be a very heavy golf instruction program. It's called Get Golf Ready. We have private instruction, and we're focusing very heavily on the little legends. We're going to grow our golf program in Portsmouth, and then a ladies-only clinic. So we're opening it up to everybody. Everybody's going to feel warm and fuzzy over at the golf course. And also, Adam and the guys are starting the Portsmouth Junior Golf Association. They're going to start competitions in September. And then we have a Thursday night for ladies only, and then Friday night mixer. So the Friday night mixer has been ongoing. And how many people, Arthur, would you say are showing up every night?
Running average of about 105, 108 people.
Oh, good. Last Friday, we ran out of carts at 4 o'clock for golfers. So things are picking up, and it's looking really good in the golf program. We have, and when I say ran out of carts, we have 62 carts that were out there, and all of them were on the course. And people were lined up waiting for the carts. Oh, wow. So these guys are doing a great job. Things are looking up. So I'm hoping that by the end of next year, we'll have some pretty good financial results for you guys. Some improvements.
Let me, first of all, Matt's going to be at Portsmouth City Park. You're full-time at the city park. Okay, you're going to be at Badawi, you're going to be there helping him, and Mr. General Manager, where's your office?
Badawi.
At Badawi as well, okay. And, okay, thank y'all. I've got some questions on the business side, but y'all don't need to stand there. I want to talk about, you done alluded a couple of times about the finance and turning things around. Is this team aware of how much money we're losing over there on that golf course?
Yes.
Okay.
I actually met with the entire team, the entire staff last Friday, and explained to them how much we're losing. I explained to them about the debt service and what we have to accomplish, where we want to get to.
Good. Okay. I mean, all this is nice, but clearly we're not going to, hopefully not turn this a profit, but there is talk, and there's been talk amongst this council for the last several years about whether or not we should be running this thing or whether or not we should send it out and let somebody else come in and take it over. And because most of municipal golf courses don't turn a profit, but you need it to be able to attract other things in your city. But to the tune of, what are we, $1.2 million? I think the last time I clocked, how much are we losing?
A little over 1.3.
A little over $1.3 million.
About
And so,
$600,000 of that is debt service. And remember, that debt service not only went to golf, but it also went to things like the pavilion apparatus at the city park. So the golf fund is carrying that debt service. There, nationally, and you may be reading this, as the baby boomers get older, the next generation is not playing as much golf. So really, we needed to find a different business model. And and we understood. We actually looked at the possibility of taking RFPs to lease out the golf course to the private sector. This is a good model that is, we think, that will enhance our rounds of play, and that's one revenue stream, that will capture all the revenue that's generated at the golf course into the golf fund. Now, for example, we have professionals at behavioral health care, and they charge a fee for service, and they wear a white coat, but that payment doesn't go into their pocket, it goes into the city's cash register, and the same should be at our golf course.
Mr. Moody?
No, I think you pretty much addressed the questions I had, Mayor.
Yes, ma'am. Ms. Raymond?
And one of the things that initially, when we began with the program, we incorporated it right along with school programs. And many of them at that time had the small, the peewee little golfers where we started them off and moved them all the way through. And as a result, we had a very good, a large number of young people that had started playing golf. And I think what we need to do is to keep in mind, if we nurture them at a younger age, we will not hit into this, because they will grow right on in, and they will tell their friends. And the best way is to get out to the young people, the upper elementary grades and middle schools, and let's try to tie it right on in with the physical education program, and it can move.
Very good point.
Thank you very much. Appreciate
you.
it. Next item.
Next item, pension obligation bonds. Oh, yeah, hold on. We're going to pass around this invitation that you'll be getting in the mail. The envelopes have been in our inventory for years and years and years, predated you. And the invitation was made on your printer downstairs. So I'm going to pass this around. This is the invitation to what's going to be taking place at Bidawee. Last year, one of the analysis that we did early on was the status of our pension systems, our two Portsmouth systems, the Portsmouth retirement system and the Portsmouth police and fire system. They were woefully underfunded. And as you know, the simple mathematical equation.
Sorry about that.
That's fine. The simple mathematical equation in pensions is that
They needed to leave knowing about that debt we had, so we. But, okay, right.
how many times have you driven it home?
That's right.
At least 5.
So on the elevator
got it.
down, those four have a conversation. But go ahead, I'm sorry, right.
No
That's
sweat.
right.
For every dollar's worth of liability, you need a dollar's worth of assets. And the liability are the pensions that you're paying now and the pensions that you'll pay in the future. And although it's hard to predict when a person is going to retire or how long they may live, there's plenty of science out there, and you do actuarial studies to figure that out and try to determine how big is that liability. And then you try to size your assets to equal the liability. Well, if we had a liability of $1, we were funded at 28 cents in one system and 32 cents in another system. And that added up to be $90 million. And where was that money? It was invested in the market. And any bad day, any bad year, would have put the two systems in the river. And so we wanted to bring you up to date on that very great decision that you guys made last year. You did something that was very bold. No other city or county in the state of Virginia has done this. And we want to report back that your decision was sound.
Good evening. As John mentioned, as you may recall, last year in June 2013, the city issued $170 million in pension obligation bonds, and we wanted to give you an update on what the results of that bond issuance are a little over a year after the fact. As John mentioned, the funded ratios of the two closed city retirement plans, the PSRS and F&P, had declined steadily over the past 15 to 20 years. And the last valuation that was done prior to the bonds in July 1 of 2012 showed that those plans were funded at 28% and 32%, compared to a target ratio of 80 to 100%. As a result of those funded ratios that were extremely low, we were at the point where one poor market year could have made the plans insolvent, and we would have been paying those benefits on a cash basis going forward. We realized, and council realized, that we needed to take bold and immediate action to restore these plans to a healthy funded level. And so, as you may recall, we spent several months working with our financial advisor and outside actuaries and talking with you and the public about what our options were, and finally determined that the issuance of the pension obligation bonds was the best option for the city. One of the reasons for that is that the city was doing it for the right reasons. We weren't doing it as some other cities had done in the past to avoid paying our ARC, our annual required contribution, or to take money and not continue to do everything we should be doing. We also realized that we were in a unique interest rate environment, meaning it was extremely low. And as a result of that, even though the bonds were issued at taxable rates because of the nature of them, we were able to issue those bonds at 4.08%, which means that if our target investment rate is 7.25%, we have a pretty sizable margin between what we're paying and what we are expecting to get over the long run on investments. You may recall also that we also included $20 million as part of that bond issue to eliminate the Social Security offset, which had been a long-standing controversial item with retirees, with a lot of confusion around what the genesis of it was. When we went to plan for the bond issuance, we estimated 4.5% on the interest rate. As a result of hitting the market at an opportune time, we were able to save $550,000 a year over what we had planned to spend, and our annual debt service is just under $11 million. The bond yields that the city pays on these bonds and other bonds are tied to the 10-year Treasury, and at the time that we issued the bonds on June 4th, the 10-year Treasury was 2.14%. Since that time, Treasury rates jumped up quickly, but lately have fallen back because of geopolitical concerns. But it's largely expected that rates will eventually begin to creep back up. This chart shows the results of the pension obligation bond issuance 1 year after, well, a little more than 1 year after the bonds were issued. I asked our actuary to look at what our funded status, and this is an estimate of our funded status with the bonds and had we not issued the bonds. Currently, the F&P is funded at 77% and PSRS is funded at 76%. Had we not issued the bonds, the funded status for both of those plans would have fell even further, 30% for F&P and 18% for PSRS. So as you can see, we significantly improved the health of those plans. And we didn't quite get to 80% because of other changes in demographics and other factors that affect the actuarial valuation. But I can tell you that this is an increase over what it was several months ago, and that's largely due to the strong market performance on our investments. But this chart is also important. If you add up the total liability, which is, had we not issued the bonds, we'd have a total liability of $240.5 million. Now our liability is 74.9 plus the remaining principal balance on the debt is $236.7 million, meaning that we are almost $4 million better off now than we would have been had we not issued those bonds. Our target investment return for the portfolio is 7.25%. The return from the date that we actually transferred the bond proceeds over to the retirement plan administrator is 10.8%. And the 1 year return, which includes approximately 2 months where we didn't have those bonds in, from July of 13 to July of 14, is 9.64%. And I think it's also important to note that these returns are particularly good when you consider that because we are a closed plan, we are mostly in a wind-down mode, and we're paying out a lot of money every month in benefits. So we have to have enough cash on hand in relatively liquid form to be able to pay those ongoing benefits. So the rate environment, as I mentioned earlier, has been a little volatile. The Treasury rates dropped to 2.43% on Thursday, which is the lowest close since June of 2013. But just a few months ago in April, the 10-year Treasury was 2.77%. If we had issued the pension obligation bonds then, our debt service would be about $500,000 more per year, or $12 million more over the life of the bonds. But the other thing that's important to note is even if we issued them today, or even if had we issued them in April, we would have missed all of that run-up in the market, which was significant from the end of August through the end of last year in particular. And this chart gives you a historical view from 2010 to now of the 10-year Treasury yield. And you can see this was the low over that period of 1.43%. We issued the bonds at 2.14, and Friday's close was 2.44. But you can see that rates have been somewhat volatile because of international conditions. People are, they call it the flight to safety. People want to hold investments that they feel are secure. So in summary, after 1 year, the bonds have achieved the objectives that were set out. We immediately increased the funded status of the plans to almost 80%, and we will continue to pay 100% of the ARC. We were fortunate to have momentum this year in the form of market returns and exceeded that investment return, which helps position us better for years when those returns may not be as strong. And again, so far we are about $4 million ahead of where we would have been had we not done the bond issue. So that concludes the presentation. I'd be happy to answer your questions.
Very good. What's 100% of the ARC now?
Pardon me?
What's the 100% of the ARC? What's that?
Well, the combined ARC and the debt service is about 19 million.
Good job, ladies and gentlemen, on your decision last year. It's paid off, as you can see.
Very good. All right.
All right, the next item is our quarterly financial report. As you know, we're required to make that to you, and Carol's going to give it. This one covers the last quarter of the last fiscal year, which we're still accruing. As you know, we do accruals, and Carol will bring this up. So this quarter, every fourth quarter is a little bit different than the preceding 3 quarters. Carol?
You may recall that we began with the fourth quarter of last year giving council regular financial reports. And as John mentioned, because June 30th is our fiscal year-end close, it's as it is every year, it's an anomaly because we don't have final numbers yet. I'm monitoring the expenditures and the revenues almost daily to get a sense of where we're going to end the year. We are accruing revenues for 45 days. That 45-day accrual period ends on the 15th, which is just 4 days away. We also are accruing our outstanding invoices. As we get invoices in after July 1 that pertain to goods and services that we actually received before June 30th, we accrue those expenditures back to the prior fiscal year. We expect to stop that accrual on the same day that we stop accruing revenue, but if we have any material invoices that come in after that date, we're required to accrue that back as well. So here's where we look preliminarily. From a big picture standpoint, it looks positive. We expect to end the year about 1% to 2% over budget on revenues, and based on current tracking, expenditures are probably going to be below budget by about 1.2%. But it's important to note that the budget, as it is this year, was not balanced entirely using ongoing revenues. There's fund balance as well. So the planned use of fund balance by the time we got to the end of fiscal 13-14 was just under 18 million. Based on this, the current tracking, we expect that we'll end up using somewhat less than that. But as I said earlier, we're still in the process of doing our accruals, and once we get the numbers relatively solid, then we'll have a better idea of what that fund balance is.
So how long will it be before we know exactly how much of the fund balance that we did last year? Next month?
We should have a pretty good idea by the end of September, because our auditors are scheduled to come in to do field work late September, and we will have everything ready for them with all of our adjustments. And obviously, as part of the audit, if something comes up that requires another adjustment, that could change. But we should have a pretty firm number for you by the end of September. The council has a number of financial policies, and one of those is that fund balance will be maintained at least 15% of the following year's budget. When we first presented the budget to you in March, your policy limit was exceeded by 16.8 million. But there have been additional appropriations and changes that have reduced this amount by 21.2 million. That includes the expected action tomorrow night that's on council's agenda for the property purchase. So as of right now, with the planned use of fund balance.
I think you just said that wrong.
Pardon me?
21.2.
Say that
We
again.
estimated 16.8, but now you're going to reduce it by 21 million?
Right, because there was 6.4 million that was appropriated to the schools. There was there were other changes that increased the total budget, which also increased the 15% limit. There was $3,750,000 that was appropriated for the property purchase on Portsmouth Boulevard. There were additional appropriations that were made to the schools, $2.1 million of the textbook fund, $500,000 in additional expenditures for the year. So in total, all of the changes that have occurred have now put us, and assuming that the ordinance passes tomorrow night, we're now at a point where we're below that 15% threshold. If we end up using all of the fund balance that we plan to use for 2013-14.
I'm a little
So
confused
is the
because,
Is the 15% policy level, is it 16.8 million or is it 21.2? Is that the
When we
15%?
presented the budget to you,
It
at
was
that
16.
time, with what was proposed in the budget, that was the amount. But there have been a number of other additional changes that were made that use that fund balance, and so and you may recall when we last discussed fund balance with you at a recent meeting, we only had about $2.5 million left, and if we use money for the property purchase and we're using fund balance to backstop the schools for any health insurance expenditures, that's almost 2.8 million, then there are claims on your fund balance that exceed the 15% policy limit. Again, based on where revenues and expenditures are tracking, it's likely that we won't end up using all the fund balance that we had planned to for 14, and in that case, it's possible that you will end up meeting that 15% target. But there is not a lot of margin for additional spending, and
see, that's why I'm a little confused.
I'm
Because we
confused by the
left in the
word
last
reduce,
meeting.
and then you get,
Elizabeth, listen.
Ask that question when we were talking about that property. And the answer was, we still had fund balance to cover it. So now,
Things. One-
wait a minute, now you're telling me that we're going below the 15%. The answer last month was we were not going below the 15%. So what's changed since then?
Okay. We said at the last meeting when we were talking about the purchase of next door that it may end up either right at 15% are below 15%.
I don't recall that, John.
Well,
I asked
the
that
second
question.
thing is that-
We're not going below 15%.
The second thing is that you're trading assets. You're trading a liquid asset for a fiscal asset, which is different than using your fund balance to balance your budget for ongoing expenses.
In both instances, the Pines as well as over here.
That's
So
right.
That's right.
And so you're taking cash and buying something that has value. And you can actually touch it and feel it, and if you manage it well, it may appreciate in value. And you're getting the asset for a good price. You're getting it below the market value.
It's almost 50 cents on the dollar, right?
So let me ask this question again. Let me ask this question. If we have to come up with the $2.7 million for school board, where is it going to put us with the 15%?
I think it's dangerous to say 2.7 and 2.8 because nobody knows what that is.
I'm asking if the number is 2.7, what's going to happen? What does it put us?
It's going to come out of fund balance. But you felt that it was important enough to help them get the comfort to go.
And that's not what I'm debating. I'm okay with that. But we did this other, I'll say me. We went along with this other purchase because we were comfortable with the fact, I was comfortable with the fact that we were still going to be at or above the 15% after we purchased that building. But now you're telling me probably not.
It's a possibility.
Danny? Yes, sir.
John, in our last meeting when we were talking about that, you were saying there was another pot of money, $5 million in the health.
Actually, it's more like three.
It's three, because
Yeah.
2.5 of that was already appropriated this year.
Back in May.
And one thing that's really important to note with that is the original source of that money was the health insurance fund. And we're at a point where we don't really have any fund balance in the health insurance fund, and we really should. We should, if you ask what staff's recommendation is, it would be that we transfer the remaining balance to the health insurance fund so that there's a cushion there that would, and right now I'm counting the worst case scenario for the schools that we're guaranteeing as a claim on our fund balance, even though it's not a hard appropriation, if you will, but it's a risk and it's a potential liability.
Could we appropriate that money over to maybe split that with that in the fund balance so we have cushion on both sides?
Well, you could, but
It's still
In
coming from the
essence,
same
it's
spot. You're not gaining anything. But moving it from one place to another, you still got to go to the fund balance to get it.
Yes, sir. Mr. Moody?
Where do we stand now? I see what you have up here, 16.8 is where we were. We're 21, so that's what, a 4.4 difference. So
It puts us.
what percentage does that put us?
remember what happens. Is the previous year that the 15% is on? Or the
No,
current year?
it's on the current year.
Okay, well, and I thought that was when you added to the bottom line of the budget, that moved the 16.8 up, because then it's 15% of a bigger number. I'd be less concerned about the fund balance. The fund balance is really important, but I'd be more concerned about next year's operating budget and making sure that you've got the revenue to fund the ongoing expenses.
Which we fund from the fund balance.
Which means it's got to go up.
Which we
Again.
fund from the balance.
Pardon me?
Go ahead, finish.
It's one thing to buy a physical asset. It's something else to use your fund balance for an ongoing operating expense that happens this year, will happen the next year, and the year after that.
Makes sense.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry, I am still lost with the word reduce by 21 million.
So when we presented the proposed budget to council, at that point, based on what was in that proposed budget, and we also said that didn't include any additional appropriation to the schools, which we knew they had requested. That was where we were. Since that time, there have been appropriations for the school activity funds, the textbook fund. There was school money that 3.4 that was part of the fund balance, 6.4 million in additional school appropriation, property acquisition, and because every expenditure that gets added to the budget increases that 15% threshold, the change in the threshold is $1.4 million. So in total, all of the actions taken by council, and we also have 408,000 that's a difference between what the schools were counting as money owed back to the city and what we show due to the difference in encumbrance treatment. All of that together is 21.2 million that has taken available fund balance away. So if you assume that the guarantee for the health insurance claims is something we need to count against fund balance, and you assume that we are going to make the property purchase, we are $4.4 million below that 15% target until we have a firm idea as to where we ended the year. If we end up using 4 or 5 million less in fund balance, then we should be back at that target.
Okay.
So it could end up being a timing difference, but unfortunately, right now, we don't know an exact number to be able to say.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
I misunderstood you in that meeting. I thought it was a different fund. I didn't know it was part of fund balance. I apologize for that.
Well, the OPEB, the $3 million that's left is a different fund. That's not part of this balance. So that money is available that could be put into the health insurance fund. But that would just barely cover with 300,000, well, not even 300, 200,000 or so to spare.
Whatever year the city made that transfer, it was $5 million. It should have gone into a trust. It did not. And so you considered an ordinance back in May that was a list of appropriations that appropriated about $2.5 million back to the health insurance fund.
I think the reason we did that is because once you put it in that trust, it had to be solely used for OPEB, and that we didn't want to tie that money up in the event that we needed to tap into it, because once it goes there, you can't get it out, correct?
That's true.
And I think that was the rationale that council used.
And remember, there are two ways to whack at your OPEB. One is to put money into it. The other is to reduce the liability. And that's what we're doing with our new way of covering our benefits.
One of those acquisitions that we're talking about is projected to save us money by terminating some leases.
Correct.
When will we have a plan on when that can be phased in so we can see the impact in the budget?
I have challenged, and we have it in the sales purchase agreement, that we can start our move-in or getting the building ready even before we close. So we've been working since last week on getting floor plans, getting people in the building to determine who goes where and how. My goal would be to have everybody in the building, and this is probably an unrealistic goal, but within a month from closing. Okay?
Wow.
Yeah.
How does that coincide, though, with the leases? What's our obligation on that?
The longest lease is 2016. I think that's in the council memo.
2 years out.
But remember what this does, too. It frees up 2 parcels of property that we own. And that's the police headquarters and the physical management support operation, which is right next door to Ed Hargis's office. And what is just further, 1 parcel south of that is our new residential development. And so our recommendation would be to go ahead and start marketing that property
That's right.
as soon as we vacate the building. Moving the chief's office is going to be one of the easiest of the moves. And I invite you to go through the building because there are already Post-its on doors. Somebody goes here, somebody goes there. We really want to put this on a fast track.
That's great, but putting the thing out for development and all needs to also be on a fast track, because you don't realize these gains and these other things until you do things like that, or else we'll be sitting here talking about this policy limit here that we're potentially in violation of, because we're not, as I guess Paul Harvey would say, telling the rest of the story. And the rest of the story is all of these other things that we can capitalize on, like the leases, like putting this partial land in play in the development market and some other things that could.
The recreation facility.
And the
we just
recreation
bought into
facility that
for our-
we just bought, all of those things. I mean, so we got to churn and burn to make sure that this
And there
stuff is realized. Go ahead.
One could probably quantify this, but there's some intangible benefits that you get with this. For the first time this century, we'll have the total police operation in one building. Think about the worst rain event that we've had in the last month. It's 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and you got to go from the chief's office over to the detectives. You got to go from the chief's office to forensic. Everybody's going to be, and there's something about unity of
We got
command.
police and fire going in there, right?
Not fire. What we plan to do is to put fire, if it works out, into where the dispatch is. We have dispatch, which becomes our
That
tactical.
building isn't big enough for both?
We're
We got
going
to
to
get
put
them out
first.
of that Taj Mahal, John.
That's
They
our
gotta
goal.
get out of there.
Mayor, let me finish.
Okay.
What I'm
All right.
saying is that we own the building where central dispatch is, okay? That's our emergency operation building. When a hurricane happens, that's where we go first, okay? Who runs the tactical operation, the emergency operations center? Is the fire department. And so it only makes sense to bring them into that building. You're having a hard time visualizing what I'm talking about.
No, I'm having a hard time thinking that that building is only going to be used for the police. We're going to find some other use for that. That's way too much space.
Let us get the police department
Okay.
in, okay?
Let's not go give everybody an office and we need to best utilize that. And I think it's
I
way too
agree.
much capacity for just the police department.
I agree. Let us implement our plan.
Okay.
Let's get there.
Okay, all right.
The year-end timetable is the next slide. As I mentioned earlier, we are in the process now of doing the year-end accruals and other adjusting entries. The auditors will be out in late September, early October, and we expect to have a draft of the financial statements available for them at that time. We want to have the audit completed. Our goal is to have everything completed and have a final CAFR done before Thanksgiving. And this is the schedule that would allow us to do that. We have to present the CAFR, the auditor has to present the CAFR to council by law before the end of December. So if we don't make the last meeting in November, then we would schedule the first meeting in December to present that CAFR to council. We mentioned, as we did last year, the utility fund, because that's another major fund. As was the case last year, we don't expect any surprises, and their spending and revenues appear to be on track. Their total budget is just under $43 million. This is the schedule of financial reporting that we have planned. And you can see each quarter we expect to present the financial information to council at your second meeting following that quarter end. November 10th is a city council work session, and we would expect to be able to present you with the preliminary draft CAFR results then. The final CAFR, as I mentioned earlier, would be presented to council either on November 25th or December 9th. One of the things that we want to do that we think is important, we gave council at your retreat in 2013 some financial trend analysis, and we want to update that, but also expand it to provide you with a 5-year forecast so that you can see, given a set of assumptions about revenues and expenditures, what the gap between those two numbers is likely to be, which is helpful. It's helpful to have that long-range planning perspective, even though the numbers are definitely going to change, so that it helps guide decisions that you may want to make during budget time. We will also be monitoring the current budget, and we'll give you any updates to that by the end of January. And that will also be the time that we're preparing the proposed budget, which we expect to present to council at the end of March of 2015. And that concludes the presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Let me ask, where's our financial advisor? How come we haven't heard from him in the last year and a half, 2 years?
Well, you have, actually.
Annually, he comes in.
You saw him quite frequently last year because of the bond issue. We don't have a bond issue, so we haven't had as much face-to-face contact with him. The people that we've had contact with more are the investment people on the retirement system. You saw the $170 million worth of investment, and because we're at that phase in our retirement plan cycle that we got a lot of people retiring, it's important that we have a balanced investment, that we have both conservative and in the middle investment strategies so that we can continue to have our targets. So we've been spending more face time with the investment advisors than with the financial advisors.
But we do keep in frequent contact with Davenport, and the credit agencies, the rating agencies are monitoring the city's debt. They will be monitoring our policies and our conformance with those. And we are continuing to have ongoing dialogue with the staff from Davenport.
I just look forward to hearing their perspective as well when they come to us about what we're doing, and we need to get back on track with that. Yeah.
Do you have any idea how many leases that this building will, is there 1, 5?
There are 8 separate buildings. I think there are 7 leases, if I remember correctly.
And this building will take care of all 7, or?
Right, exactly.
Okay.
All 8 buildings will go into one.
And that equates to how much saved on an annual basis?
About 270,000, thereabouts.
It's in that thing. It's in that handout we got. I think you're right. 270.
Yes, sir, go ahead.
As far as is it any, I mean, I know when you put your budget together, you put it, it's lean, Is there any fat anywhere you can find? Of course it's not, I know, because I know when we did it was
No,
to a T.
it is lean. It's very lean.
Right on the nose.
Hey, Kurt,
Yes, sir, go ahead.
back to the point the mayor asked earlier, accrual period ends August 15th. And it's going to take 45 days to figure out where we're at.
The 45-day period ends on the 15th.
No, I'm
so-
saying you told the mayor it's going to be the end
End of
of
September.
September. So
And the reason for that page is that we want to have the advice of our auditors in, because they'll be looking to see if there are any adjustments that,
Well, the auditors won't be doing any adjustments by then. They won't be coming out to do field work.
yeah, that's just a matter of how much money we got.
Right.
I mean, I don't need an audit for that.
Well, right, but we have a complex set of financial statements with a lot of interconnected parts, and there are a lot, beyond just accruing the invoices back, there are a lot of adjusting entries that need to be made. So we want to make sure that we're not giving you information and then turning around a week later and saying, whoops.
Like this information tonight. Gotcha. Okay. All right.
Thank you.
thank you.
Roughly, how much square footage do we have over there in the fire department at, what is that, 500 Crawford?
355 Crawford.
355 Crawford. What's the square footage?
7,300.
7,300. And that does, and is everybody there?
Yes.
Everybody there, 7,000, okay.
All right, all of our citizens are considered to be customers, whether they come to City Hall or not, but a fair number come to City Hall. A fair number come for a variety of reasons, and we wanted to give you an update on City Hall customer service improvements. And you've been seeing these on the first floor.
Yes.
As you know, Dolores, you want to come up?
They look good.
Each time the General Assembly meets, Dolores Short, as our registrar, is faced with new requirements. The big issue, of course, is photo ID. It was important for us to give Dolores workable space where everything could happen under one roof. It was fragmented before. Elections are important.
You telling me?
That's an understatement. And we want to make sure that we provide good quality service to people who are, everybody votes, everybody's a voter. And so what we've been doing is to make modifications on the first floor to accommodate a variety of things. In summary, what we've done is moved our water billing to the second floor, or the customer service aspect, and I invite you to go through. It's much like, have you ever been to a medical lab where you check in with the receptionist and then you go to a window and there is a person who takes your account information? That's how our operation works. But how about give an overview of where we are and where we're going?
All right, Dolores, would you like to cover?
And before you start, real quick, how much square footage does the registrar's office have now, and how much are they going to have when we're done here? Are we giving them all of the water department down on the first floor?
She's going to get an additional 1,600 square feet in the water department, out of the water department space, and then.
Out of how much is that now?
Out of a total of almost 1,700, 18, about 2,000.
Okay.
So the treasurer gets
And you'll be able to
3,400
do
square feet,
everything
yeah.
in your place with this new digital space? Okay.
Good.
Right.
All right,
And
very
there's
good.
some benefits. You have a handout here that Dolores put together for you, and that pretty much describes everything. I didn't know if, Dolores, you wanted to cover that with them, or? Okay. All right. But John covered them, but there were a lot of
Good report.
unintended benefits, yes, as well. Okay, now, the city treasurer, and you jumped ahead, you answered one of the questions I was going to share with you. The city treasurer space is also going to be renovated a little bit later on. When you walk out of the elevator, you know, the double elevators, over to the left side, there will be a wall placed, and there will be access for Dolores to get to the back side of the registrar's area. But that space, the majority of that space, all the way back to the wall, will be given to the treasurer for storage and for additional conference room. Dennis Bagley is going to work with him to actually repurpose some of the space that he currently has so he can best utilize that additional square footage. Also, what you're going to see as well is that the first floor is going to be, I would have to say, I don't want to say updated, because the floor really needs to be repaired significantly. So you're going to see within the next couple of months new flooring going in. We're going to make significant repairs to the walls. That whole brick floor,
You don't
yes.
want to go below that limit.
We're going to be looking for fat, not an ass.
No, right
Maybe the
now,
floor gets next year.
that is a safety hazard. When
Okay.
you look at that floor, it's cracking up.
It is.
Women with
It
heels
really is. It
have
really
broken their
is.
heels on it. So it's not one of those things where it's cosmetic. This is really a safety issue. It's a trip and fall
So
issue.
you have anything to try to improve the flow down there?
The flow.
Flow of people when,
Yes, we're going to do something with that little center area, the information desk. Yes, we're going to make some changes there as well.
there's a
It's really large.
So bottleneck
Right,
right
that
right,
point.
right. And there are things around the corner that are stored, Jimmy doesn't have enough space, so he's using storage space in that general area. So we want to clean that area up and make repairs, a lot of much needed repair.
What kind of time frame we're looking at?
I'm hoping to have it completed, by December? Yes, it should be, by December, all of that should be completed. Making the repairs to the floor is going to take a little bit of time because we have to section off. We can't just shut down City Hall to repair the floor. So they'll have to do some weekend and evening work to get all that completed.
Okay.
But there's one other point. I want to give Brian the opportunity to just go over the changes in the water department, if you don't mind.
Just very briefly, if you haven't had a chance, today was day one of our new operation on the second floor. We've consolidated all of the customer service and all the administration. With general services help, and we've totally transformed that space. Took walls out and repurposed so we can have, because we have about twice the number, a little more than twice the number of people in the space on the second floor than what we did have. And so it's going to be a lot better and more efficient for us having all of our people in one place. So our customers, whatever the issue, they can just come to one spot and take care of their needs. And like I said, the treasurer is going to be collecting our payments for us. So if you want to pay your bill, you don't have to come to the second floor. You just stay on the first floor, and you can pay your bill to the treasurer. So that's going to work out very well. So
While you're standing up, this doesn't relate to our move, but if you've been following the email traffic over the weekend, we had a private contractor drill through a 36-inch concrete pipe that's not that old. And he went from one side to the other. It's in downtown Suffolk, Hall
Avenue.
Hall Avenue. And so it's been a priority for Brian's folks.
Right.
Why don't you give an update?
Sure. So we had.
And this is to Suffolk's expense.
Sir?
This is to the
to the
contractors or
contractor.
Suffolk's expense?
Yes.
Sorry.
Come to the podium.
So we had, so on, I guess it was on Friday that happened with a contractor, and hit that line, or actually, excuse me, it was on Thursday, late Thursday afternoon. And so we've made it's called a bar wrapped concrete pipe, meaning it's actually a steel pipe that's wrapped in rebar and concrete for reinforcement. And it's a 36-inch diameter, so it's a very large pipe, a lot of flow. And so when they drilled through, created two holes, one on each side. And so we have fashioned a temporary repair to that to stop the leak. And so we've got the leak contained, and our operations, fortunately, they weren't impacted in the sense of none of our customers lost water. We were able to maintain and get that done. But for the permanent repair is a little more complex, and so we actually have the pipe manufacturer, and it requires a special saddle that's attached around the pipe. So in essence, we're creating a pipe within a pipe to contain that leak. And then it has to be welded, so actually we remove a portion of the mortar, and then that new saddle is actually welded on in place, and that creates the permanent repair so around that pipe, and that will take place on Wednesday. So that repair piece is en route, and we will have that final repair done on Wednesday, and then the street put back. And so there's a very small section of Hall Avenue that's still closed to traffic in Suffolk, but they were able to work it out so nobody's, well, some might have to sort of go a roundabout way. It's a very small section that's closed, and of course the leak is contained, and we have that permanent repair taking place on Wednesday.
Now, do we have our own emergency folks to respond to that, or is the contractor capable of doing that? How do we interface with the contractor? How do we make sure that they're comfortable with what we're doing? Of course, they probably don't have a whole lot of latitude, but they're going to swallow this pill, so they need to know just how big it is. And
well, the contractor that broke it is not involved in the repair. We're having the repair done. We're coordinating, because that was a contractor for the gas company. They were trying to directional drill a new gas line. And so
Who do we submit the invoice to?
That's right.
Contractor or the gas company. It's
Right.
going to be a third party.
Right.
But we have emergency folks, but we also have contractors who respond to emergencies. And when you got a 36-inch pipe, and that's a big pipe, I mean, think about it. That's
a lot of flow.
A lot of water. You need a contractor. So the person that's doing the work is our contractor.
correct.
What's the estimated cost of the repair, do we know?
The permanent repair, as far as the repair saddle and the well and all that's going to take place, is probably going to be in the ballpark of $10,000. But then we've got other costs. We've got to put the road back, all of the cost incurred, which I don't have a tally, because the situation like this, we don't have the opportunity to bid. It's an emergency situation.
Sure.
So it's time and material.
It's open season.
So we keep
For a contractor.
we keep track of that, of course, but I can't give you a total. But it's
But that's
gonna
the
be-
temporary sleeve. What about the permanent fix?
the permanent fix is going to be, just that piece is going to be about $10,000. That's just to get the piece on. And that's not the putting the mortar back on when it's done, filling the hole, fixing the street. All that's over and above that. That's just for
The
one saddle and getting it welded on.
And the contractor who did the damage pays for it, or the city of Suffolk?
It won't be the city of Suffolk. It'd be the party that damaged it is ultimately who's
Yeah.
responsible.
Now, because we're sleeving over top of another pipe, future issues, no?
Shouldn't be. No, this is how they plan for those kinds of repairs, and so we've gone directly to the pipe manufacturer, and that is there. It's not something we're crafting or coming up with. It's actually what's designed. It's the designed repair for that type of issue, and so that's why we've involved them, and they're going to actually do that piece for
What
us.
about the loss of the water?
We'll cross that bridge. I don't have an answer for you. I mean, we can make an estimate and put that in the bill. The first response was, how bad is the damage and how can we
Right.
solve it? And remember, we have two transmission systems. This is the low pressure system. We have a high pressure system that goes across country, essentially through Driver up that way. This one follows the swamp road.
Right.
And so, and this pipe is not all that old. This pipe is what, 10?
Less than 5 years old.
Yeah.
So we actually have three separate lines that run out of the plant through downtown Suffolk on various directions, and essentially follow through the Great Dismal Swamp, generally along the 58 corridor, end up at Frederick Boulevard. And so about 5 years ago, this new line was put in to replace a section of two of those three pipes due to some redevelopment that was taking place in Suffolk. And so we put this in place, and so it's unfortunate that this happened. But
Are there any residential areas affected as a result of
No,
his
ma'am.
all businesses?
No, ma'am.
no one's been affected.
No one has been affected
Yeah.
so far?
We get
Okay.
concerned about domestic use and fire flows
Okay.
immediately with a break like this.
All right.
All right, thank you.
One last thing. I've reported to you before that we have established quarterly meetings with the district manager for VDOT, Jim Utterback. And we're having a meeting here tomorrow. It's a multidiscipline approach. It's everybody that's involved with transportation, streets, and highways. And so we have a list of things. You can imagine that our big projects are on the list, ERC, the bridge, and they have things. So it's a great way for us to cross-pollinate. Nita, James, I don't see James. He's sick? Yeah, okay. So anyway, I just wanted to give you a report that we're meeting tomorrow. And that's what we got.
Okay. Anything else?
Yes, sir. At this time, you have Janie Culpepper that's going to come forward.
While she's coming up, let me just share. I happened to sit in on the school board's retreat last weekend, and it was a very good retreat, but there was quite a bit of discussion on several issues, but they were talking about our new way forward and how we're going to be interfacing with each other and making sure we understand, as well as the finances and the allocation piece. And there were several of them that were very concerned that we may be treating them differently than other divisions and other people that we allocate funds for. And I want to make sure that we're not, that whatever it is we're doing, because I don't want them thinking they're partial funding and they're trying to go every quarter and got to meet to a zero line before they go to the next piece.
Oh, no.
Well, that's the discussion, and I didn't jump in, I just listened.
Glad you
And
did.
so we need to make sure that we convey to them how we're going to move forward, and that's not what our intent is.
Let me report to you, too, that last Thursday afternoon at 3 o'clock, Carol and I met with Pat Fisher and Chris Steele, and we met past 5 o'clock. So we had a good, hearty discussion.
Who met Ms. Fisher and who else?
Chris Steele. And so we talked about the closeout of last year that ended on June 30th, 2014. We talked about just that very thing, Mr. Mayor, about the appropriations. We talked about capital projects. We talked about plethora, to include porta-johns at elementary schools. So, and we want this to be routine too. We have set this up, Carol, to meet, our next meeting is in September.
Yes, every quarter on the third Wednesday.
Just make sure that we clarify that, because I don't want them thinking we're trying to control them and every quarter everything's got to be lined up. That discussion went on too far for my taste, and no one disputed it. So if you met with them, they did not clarify that, and their school board, I thought, drifted off a little, but I didn't. So we need to make sure when you get them back together, re-emphasize the reason why we're meeting quarterly and what we're doing to make sure this is better for both of us, and not us trying to control them and make sure that every quarter that their books are reconciled and all of that. Please make sure that happens.
Will do. And what we're doing, we have the same accounting platform.
I understand all that.
Yeah, well, let me finish. We're going to give them access, if they like it, to look into our system. And if they will give us access to, which, inquiry, not to change. And that way, everybody is knowledgeable of what's going on, so that, you're not coming up and hitting the wall and trying to figure out what the status is.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Along that same line, Mayor, I had a conversation last week, in the letter that was sent out on the health, covering any potential health care cost of integrating the two systems for 2 years. There was a question whether that's budget year or calendar year. And that's important. They feel it should be calendar year, and I told them I'm pretty sure it is.
It is. I mean, that's what every...
But the letter didn't really address it that way. We might want to somehow give them some assurance that it's calendar year.
I did in the actual meeting.
Did you?
I did stand up and speak then, because that was the other issue that went on a little too long, and so I just raised my hand and asked it.
I'm happy to report that the school superintendent and the deputy superintendent, they understand this, and they get it, and they're comfortable.
The other thing, and maybe this was a good segue for it, I would like for us to think, and don't need to weigh in tonight, but with a new superintendent coming on board, and there'll be some new school board members, I think it's a golden opportunity to get the rapport off to a good start. Right. And I don't think meeting quarterly is enough. I think we need to have, I'd like to propose that we think about having a joint retreat with the school board. Even if it's
good idea.
At least annually. I think it's extremely important that we work together in a collaborative basis.
I agree 100%. And we
Okay.
wanted to take that same opportunity at the administrative level, and we have established, as Carol said, monthly meetings on a particular date and at a particular time. So I think that's a grand idea. We'll work
Okay,
to that end.
good.
All right, I'm gonna sit down.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, one of the things, it was set up like that at one time, where there were periodic times where the school board and the council automatically met. It made for a better transition. Everybody knew what everybody else was doing, and it was no such thing as I'm second guessing what the school board is doing because I do not have the knowledge base. And I think that if we use that open approach, we can get more things accomplished because a lot of things we can do together, which will help us reduce some of our expenditures.
Yes, ma'am.
And make it more conservative instead of everything must be separated. You lose some in the transition of funding.
Good point. Yes, ma'am.
Good evening.
Is that breaking news or good news?
Both.
Both, okay.
Both. We bring both breaking news and good news.
We definitely need good news.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, council members, colleagues, and guests. After countless hours of hard work, a lot of prayer, and unprecedented dedication to the task by my staff, it's my pleasure to announce that the City Assessor's Office has earned the coveted Certificate of Excellence in Assessment Administration by the International Association of Assessing Officers. I'm not going to read the whole letter to you from, that they
But everybody doesn't get this, right?
No, they don't.
Okay,
And
all
I'm going to tell you how
Tell
few
us
it
that
is.
part.
I am.
Tell us that part.
Tell us what cities
all
didn't
right.
get.
I got one too. Chesapeake says, I got one too, right? I need to know where I need to go brag, right?
That's right.
But anyway, my letter from IAAO, I'm just going to hit a couple of phrases
Okay.
and y'all have it. And it's, Dear Mrs. Culpepper, congratulations. We are pleased to inform you that your office has earned the prestigious IAA Award Certificate of Excellence in Assessment Administration. Earning the IAAO Certificate of Excellence in Assessment Administration is a rigorous and challenging task. The purpose of the IAAO Certificate of Excellence in Assessment Administration is to recognize those governmental units utilizing best appraisal and assessment practices throughout their office, including a strong emphasis on teamwork, accomplishment, and a high level of satisfaction among peers, staff, and constituents. The IAAO Certificate of Excellence in Assessment Administration is intended for jurisdictions that have developed superior assessment practices for all aspects of their operations. We wish to congratulate you and your staff on achieving this level of excellence and commend you on your hard work and dedication. Your commitment has earned you the IAAO Certificate of Excellence in Assessment Administration from the world's premier property appraisal and assessment organization. And I'm going to leave the rest of it for y'all.
That's great.
And
boards.
just so you can get
We
an
need to
idea.
go to work on this.
This is what-
Billboards, television.
Everything.
This is our submission.
Wow.
It's 7 months of extremely hard work.
Man.
That's great,
I just
Jane.
wanted y'all, a visual is very good.
Yes.
You better
And how many
believe it.
assessors
You've
in
done it.
Virginia have gotten this?
3.
3.
But that's not even the big thing. Well, I'll get to that in just a minute.
get to the big
Very,
thing.
very impressive. Recognition from the IAAO through the Certificate of Excellence Administration is the highest professional honor that an assessment jurisdiction can gain. The CEAA recognizes jurisdictions that utilize best appraisal and assessment practices in their offices. The CEAA is directed at an entire jurisdiction rather than an individual. Thus, there is a strong emphasis on teamwork and group achievement, as y'all all know, that I really strive for with my team. The designation. The significance of earning the CEAO can be summoned by noting that Portsmouth is the 27th designee out of 13,000 designations
great.
in the United States. And hundreds more internationally. This puts us in a class as being known as elite in the assessment industry.
Come on.
Closer to home, we are the first jurisdiction in South Hampton Roads to receive the CEAA designation and only the third in the state of Virginia.
Oh, that's all.
That's what I
Yes, that's right.
We finally got something.
Leading the line is the drainage.
Now you can brag.
Building and protecting a quality reputation is a great challenge of the assessment profession. Henry Ford, the American industrialist and pioneer of the assembly line production method, said, "You can't build a reputation on what you're going to do." Assessment professionals must turn intentions into actions and persevere until the goal is achieved. And we have achieved the goal. The benefits, recognition by the jurisdiction's peers, increased public trust in the appraisal process, improved office morale and pride, improved communication and teamwork within the office, professional growth of the staff. The next steps, a small delegation from our office will travel to the IAAO National Conference in Sacramento, California, where the certificate will be presented on Wednesday, August 27th at the annual banquet.
Great.
The IAAO Executive Committee approved the presentation of the CEAA at the annual banquet rather than the awards luncheon to acknowledge that the certificate is earned rather than a nominated award.
Who's going? Billy, you going, right? Don't let her leave you here. Right, we'll mind the store. Both of y'all need to go.
Our next steps are we're working with the Office of Marketing and Communications to create a proactive and aggressive public awareness campaign in an effort to maximize the benefits of the designation. Finally, to apply the lessons learned through this exercise to the day-to-day functions of our department as we strive for the 5-year recertification of this prestigious designation. We have to renew it every 5 years to make absolutely certain that we meet all the requirements.
So the others that have it, what's the chances that they get renewed? Have
Some
you
do,
looked
some
at?
don't. It just all depends.
It's got to be hard to maintain that, right?
It's hard to obtain it.
I know, I did. Right.
Yes.
It's a very precise checklist.
But I think I can sum it up this way. Dr. Calvin A. Kent, PhD, author of numerous feature articles relating to assessment administration, summed it up best when he said, "Excellent is recognized, is excellent realized."
All right.
And one of the questions that you had, Mayor, was the people who had it. There are 11 jurisdictions in Florida, 6 in Texas, 3 in Virginia, 2 in Washington State, 1 in Canada, 1 in North Carolina, 1 in Arkansas, 1 in Idaho, 1 in Tennessee, and 1 in Kansas.
Wow.
That's 28 out of over 13,000.
Wow.
And also, anytime anyone goes to the IAAO website and they look under CEAA, they see the city of Portsmouth, Virginia.
I can tell you
Okay.
that.
Next month in the magazine that's offered by the IAAO and is viewed by about 21,000 persons.
That's right.
There will be an article in there that includes us, so everybody that's in there will
That's
see
right.
and recognize Portsmouth, Virginia. And I would also just like to thank council for standing behind the city assessor's office for the length of time that I have been there and providing us funds in our budget so that we could have continuing education and have what I feel like is the best educated staff in all of Hampton Roads.
All right.
Thank you. Do you have any questions?
All right. Good news.
Very good news. Very good.
One other
The
thing,
board.
can I have a quick stand-up of my staff that's here?
Please, please, come on up. Come on up.
All right.
Go around there.
Walk up front.
That's right, please, please. That's
On
right.
TV.
And the county.
Get on TV.
This is not our whole team. We have a couple of people who were not able to be with us tonight, but I think y'all have met Angel Whitehead before.
Yes.
This is Tawana Mara. Dorothy
Yes.
Morgan, excuse me, I call her Chatty Cathy, so sometimes I forget her name. Of course, y'all know Billy Butt.
Yes.
And I know you know this man right here, Earl Gaskins. And this is our newest member of our team. This is Cassandra Griffin.
Good job.
And you know, before you take your seat, we got to say how thrilled we are to hear this, but more importantly, how thrilled we are to see what you've done with that office since you've taken, and the things that you've done with your staff and the cross-training and everybody being able to do everything. I just think that's great. I think that's a smart approach.
It is.
To having a small staff that's got to do a lot of things for a lot of people at a moment's notice sometimes, and I think it's just commendable. So thank you for your leadership.
Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely.
All right. Is that it? Any liaison reports or anything? Yeah, make sure we get with the school board and communication. All right, is that it? We're adjourned.
Great way to end.
Great way to end. Great way to end.